Welcome to another marvelous video, and today we're going to be taking a look at 12 hidden movies from the 80s that deal with vampires. Their insane horror, mind-blowing plot twists, and disturbingly beautiful stories make them truly brilliant masterpieces. Without further ado, let's dive straight into these movies.
Before we go into our explanation, we have a very small request. If you like our content, please support us by subscribing to our channel. This is a small click for you, but for us, it means a lot. Thank you. Let's begin.
Number 12. Life Force. In this sci-fi horror, Colonel Tom Carlson and his crew traveling inside a space shuttle make an absolutely mind-blowing discovery. Inside an enormous spaceship hidden around Halley's Comet, they find these terrifying bat-like creatures and 3 humanoid aliens who are completely frozen in huge glass jars. They decide to take these mysterious aliens back to Earth, but as they head home, they suddenly lose all contact with Earth. Soon, a rescue mission is sent to look for Carlson's team. When they find the shuttle, they're shocked to see that it has been completely destroyed by fire. They see that the crew is tragically dead, the alien bodies are perfectly intact, and the escape pod is missing. The aliens are brought to a research facility in London where things take a terrifying turn. The female alien wakes up and viciously drains the life force from a guard, who in turn becomes a vampire. Soon, vampirism spreads like an epidemic across London. Martial law is declared and the city is in chaos. Can humanity overcome this plague, or will we be defeated, turning into vampires ourselves? Where is Carlson, and what was his role in all of this? Who burned the spaceship and why? Was it a trap right from the start? Based on Colin Wilson's novel, The Space Vampires, Life Force is a 1985 film directed by Tobe Hooper. Despite a generous budget, much of which went into this stunning CGI, the film didn't perform well at the box office, but you know what? This film was way ahead of its time. The idea of space travel had already begun to fascinate popular imagination, so you can say that the film was quite insightful and audacious in its take. Its surreal mix of erotica, horror, and sci-fi has earned Life Force a cult following over the years. Up next, at number 11, we have the movie Near Dark. This movie is all about horror, action, and drama. The story begins when Caleb, a young man from a small town, meets the alluring vampire named May. After seducing him, she bites him only to transform him into a fellow vampire. A confused Caleb is initially clueless about his transformation, but soon begins to show symptoms such as burning in the sunlight. Caleb joins May and her band of vampires. The group is led by the charismatic Jesse, who has his doubts about Caleb, but nevertheless allows Caleb to stay for a week to see if he can adapt to their deadly lifestyle. Caleb struggles with the idea of killing for blood, so May takes it upon herself to protect him, even to the extent of feeding him her own blood. Things get really tense when Caleb's actions put the group at risk, but he earns their trust after heroically helping them escape a police raid. Meanwhile, things get complicated as Caleb's father starts searching for him. Trouble intensifies further when the child vampire Homer targets Caleb's sister Sarah. A thrilling confrontation ensues. Will Caleb's family survive against these bloodthirsty monsters? And whose side will Caleb take? His biological family that raised him, or his new vampire family who now shelters him? Is there a way to reverse Caleb's vampirism? What happens to his vampire girlfriend if a blood transfusion can indeed reverse Caleb's vampirism? Did you know that this film didn't use traditional vampire makeup? The visual effects, like burning vampires, were all done through creative lighting, which makes the film even more realistic. In spite of struggling with box office success, the film has gained a cult following over the years. Directed by Catherine Bigelow, it's one of the earliest vampire films directed by an award-winning film director. Next in line, we have The Living Dead Girl at number 10. In this tragic tale of horror, mystery, loyalty, and eroticism, a dead woman named Catherine is resurrected into a vampire 2 years after her death. During her resurrection, a woman named Barbara accidentally clicks pictures of Catherine, that will later lead her to the horrific discovery of Catherine's true nature. Meanwhile, the vampire returns to her old mansion, which is now up for sale. She haunts and kills the potential future tenants while they're having sex in Catherine's mansion. Catherine's childhood friend, Helene, with whom she shared a very close bond, comes to the rescue. Helene not only talks Catherine out of her killing spree, but also eventually helps her feed on humans by luring potential victims into the house. Somewhere between restraining her friend from being a monster to losing restraint and becoming a monster herself, Helene's inherent goodness finds conflict between friendship and ethics. As Helene is torn between the redemption and survival of her friend, is she risking her own soul? La Mort Vivante is a French horror directed by Jean Rollin. Unlike typical zombies, the undead in The Living Dead Girl isn't a mindless monster. Catherine and Helene undergo opposite spiritual journeys. Catherine reconnects with her humanity with the help of Helene, while Helene finds her inner monster as she tries to help her friend survive. In this ferocious yet painstaking tale of fealty and survival, this 1982 French film continues to be one of the most underrated gems when it comes to gothic fiction. Number 9. Mr. Vampire. In a non-Western take on the whole genre of vampire fantasy, Mr. Vampire is a horror film set in Hong Kong. A Taoist priest named Master Cao is skilled at controlling spirits and vampires. He's hired by a wealthy businessman named Yam to dig out and bury his deceased father's corpse. According to Chinese tradition, this is believed to bring prosperity at home. As a surprised Cao discovers that the dead body has actually become a vampire, he brings it to his house for study. His students are so stupid and incompetent that they mistakenly help the vampire escape, which kills Yam's son. Cao is arrested for the murder, and in a deadly battle, Cao and his students manage to defeat it, but not without the risk of turning into vampires themselves. The film culminates in a final showdown where Cao and his fellow Taoist priests destroy the vampire by burning it alive, finally ending this chaos with ancient wisdom and skillful mastery. This 1985 film mixes traditional Taoist beliefs with supernatural horror and vampirism. It has further inspired 3 more sequels after this, although none of them were super hits. The whole Mr. Vampire series, in spite of being unrelated in their plots and characters, has earned a decent fandom in both Western and Asian film circuits. At number 8, we have The Lair of the White Worm. Let's give you the gist of this one. Angus Flint, a Scottish archaeology student, is excavating a convent site at Mercy Farm in Derbyshire, run by the Trent sisters Mary and Eve. He discovers an unusual snake-like skull which he believes is linked to the legend of the D'Ampton worm. Now, this is a mythical creature slain long ago by John D'Ampton. Soon, it's suspected that the legend may actually be real. Lady Sylvia Marsh, who is the immortal priestess of the snake god, is revealed to be behind the mystery. She steals the skull, and the Trent sisters experience disturbing visions related to it. She even kidnaps Eve and plans to sacrifice her to the snake god. Meanwhile, Angus and the others investigate the caves where they discover a giant serpent. Angus and Mary break into Temple House only to find Eve's mother, Dorothy, biting people under a serpent's spell. As they all work together to stop Lady Sylvia's plan, who will emerge victorious in this supernatural universe? Can Angus tame the snake with music? Will Lady Sylvia, with her snake god, defeat this bunch of curious humans, or will she be defeated in her own malady? Does the anti-venom that Angus uses come with a deadly cost, and is he prepared to deal with the consequences of his choices? This 1988 supernatural horror comedy directed by Ken Russell is an evocative tale based on Bram Stoker's book of the same title. Up next, at number 7, we have Transylvania 6-5000. You're in for a treat, as this 1985 horror comedy mixes a variety of classic horror creatures, such as a mummy, a werewolf, and a vampire. It follows the journey of 2 tabloid reporters who travel to modern-day Transylvania to investigate suspicious sightings. Jack Harrison and Gil Turner are writers for The Sensation, a tabloid run by Gil's father, Mac Turner. When Mac receives a videotape showing a creature believed to be Frankenstein's monster, he sends Jack and Gil to Transylvania to investigate. If they fail, they'll be fired. In Transylvania, Jack meets a tourist named Elizabeth Ellison, while Gil awkwardly questions locals about Frankenstein's monster. They stay at a peculiar hotel and meet the mysterious Mayor Lepescu. As they explore the place, they encounter a series of horror creatures, including a vampire and a swamp monster. They discover Dr. Malavakwa, a disgraced doctor conducting experiments on Frankenstein-like creatures. To what end did Malavakwa create these beings? Will this bring redemption to his family? What happens when the truth is revealed? Will the townspeople ever accept these creatures? Whatever be the answer, Jack and Gil sure as hell return with a sensational story, earning Mac the headline he always wanted. Their investigation ultimately uncovers more than they ever expected, making their failure a success. Known for his role as Cosmo Kramer on the popular sitcom Seinfeld, Richards plays the role of a quirky butler in the film. His physical comedy and slapstick humor add a fun touch to the film, blending comedy with horror and literature. Number 6. Vamp. Keith and AJ are college students who want to move into a frat house, so they hire a stripper to bribe their way in. They borrow a Cadillac from Duncan, a rich student who insists on joining them. At the strip club, AJ tries to get a stripper named Katrina to perform at their party, but Katrina turns out to be a vampire who seduces and kills AJ. Worried about AJ, Keith begins to search for him and is chased by a gang of vampires. Keith finds AJ's body, but the vampires bring him back to life as one of them. AJ tells Keith he's now a vampire and sacrifices himself to protect Keith. Keith runs away, but Duncan is also turned into a vampire and he dies in a car explosion. They escape through the sewers, fight more vampires, and with AJ's help, they defeat the vampires and are now safe. AJ plans to live as Keith's vampire roommate and attend night school. Surreal, right? This 1986 American horror comedy is the perfect young adult movie about teen vampires way before Twilight and Vampire Diaries came out. It has action, entertainment, and thrills that are just simply fun to watch. Gina Davis's role as a vampire in this film is quite different from her more serious performances in movies like The Fly. Now, at number 5, we've picked Sundown. In the desert town of Purgatory, an ancient vampire leader named Mardulak wants his colony to live peacefully. In order to repair an artificial blood factory, Mardulak invites David Harrison, the human designer of the plant. Harrison arrives with his wife and 2 daughters, never suspecting that the trip will be anything but a peaceful vacation. Things take a messy turn as Ethan Jefferson, a rebellious, bloodthirsty vampire, wants to go back to the habit of hunting humans. Tensions rise as he leads a revolution with rival vampires supporting conflicting camps. The Harrison family soon finds themselves caught in the middle of this civil war. Amidst the chaos, a young descendant of the famous Van Helsing family arrives with the determination to destroy all vampires. You know, in Christian theology, purgatory is a place, or a mental state, where sinners atone for their sins before they actually get to heaven. Sundown, The Vampire in Retreat, is a 1989 film that captures this purgatorial chaos of the mind with horror and thrills. Number 4. Vampire at Midnight. This one's really interesting. The LAPD is left baffled as a serial-killing vampire leaves behind a trail of drained bodies. In this mind-blowing horror thriller, Roger Sutter is a disillusioned, weary cop who's chasing down the bloodthirsty murderer. To make matters more complicated, the hypnotist vampire is also in love with Sutter's girlfriend. Jenny is invited to perform at a party hosted by Viktor Radikov, a motivational speaker who uses his hypnotic powers to convince her to practice with him. What Jenny doesn't realize is that Viktor is the vampire the police are hunting. He plans to transform her into one of his kind, as he has done with other women in the past, so there's a lot of wickedness, killings, including throat slashes and stabbings, fangs, and a metalhead acting as his loyal servant. Did you know this film was shot over a period of only 4 weeks? That's right. Anyways, this 1987 film, directed by Gregory McClatchy, retains a cult following with gory deaths, nudity, action, and really good performances where the characters unravel the lines between good and evil. We're almost at the end of the list, and here's The Hunger at number 3. Brace up for this one. Miriam Blaylock is an ancient vampire who promises eternal life to her human lovers. Her current vampire boyfriend is John from 18th century France. In modern-day New York, they pose as wealthy music teachers in the daytime, while at night they feed on victims. John, however, begins to age rapidly. He realizes that Miriam's promise of eternal youth was false. Desperate, he seeks help from a gerontologist named Dr. Sarah Roberts, who initially turns him down, but later sympathizes with his critical condition. John kills Alice, a young student Miriam had chosen as her next companion, but to his surprise, Alice's blood fails to revive him. An evil Miriam throws John into a coffin, a fate that her other decaying ex-lovers have gone through. How many hearts will Miriam drain out before her own heart is filled? Who's Miriam's next prey? What happens when the predator becomes the prey? Starring Catherine Deneuve and David Bowie, this erotic horror flick from 1983 has gained its own cult following within the Gothic subculture. Number 2, we're almost there with To Die For. LA real estate agent Kate Wooten's life takes an unexpected turn when she meets a mysterious and alluring client named Vlad. This seductive gentleman is looking for a secluded home in the Hollywood Hills, far away from prying eyes where he can live in peace. Obviously, as Kate helps him find the best property, she becomes increasingly drawn to him. His charm and enigmatic nature sweep her off her feet, but Kate's growing attraction takes a shocking twist when she learns the truth. Vlad is a real vampire. This revelation changes everything, and now Kate has to work her way out. This is a new and dangerous world she had never imagined she'd find herself in. Did you know that this 1988 R-rated film written by Leslie King had to cut several scenes to avoid an X rating from the MPAA? This was also the final film of Dwayne Jones. And finally, at number 1, we have My Best Friend is a Vampire. So here's the story in a nutshell. Jeremy Capello is an awkward teenager from Houston struggling to find a girlfriend. Jeremy is troubled with strange nightmares about a seductive woman, Nora, whom he eventually meets. After seducing him, she bites him but fails to complete her meal. The next day, Jeremy feels sick. He learns that Nora's house has been burnt down. A strange man named MODOK reveals that Nora was a vampire and that Jeremy is now one too. Jeremy soon experiences the symptoms of vampirism: aversion to garlic, sensitivity to sunlight, and cravings for blood. As he adapts to his new life, his relationship with his new girlfriend gets complicated. Meanwhile, Jeremy's parents suspect he might be gay or involved in bad company. Who will Jeremy turn to now that Nora is dead and MODOK knows that he's a vampire? Will Darla and his parents ever accept him? Here's some trivia for you. The poster seen in Jeremy's bedroom is the downtown Houston skyline with fireworks in the background. These posters were actually promotions for the Rendezvous Houston event that was held in 1986. Marvelous verdict! The 1980s saw a huge wave of vampire films where horror met action, drama, and even romance. This shaped the genre of vampire horror for years to come. These movies explored new dimensions of the vampire myth that made them truly one of a kind. All of these films defined an era, creating iconic vampire characters and original plots. In our opinion, the 1980s remain a golden decade for vampire cinema and the horror fandom.
And, as always, if you liked our content, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe to us if you haven't already. Thanks for watching, be safe out there, and have a marvelous day.